Twilight Gets a Puppy. By TDR. Chapter 121. Twilight Gets a Puppy. Season 1. Epilogue 2. Rock Hound. Ponyville, 2 days after the grand galloping gala. Ross stretched as a stiff breeze blew through the fur of his bare chest and back. His coat laid across a bench in the sparring grounds, and he had emptied his pockets of the usual knickknacks, oddities, and snacks that filled them, leaving the pile with the coat. Landing on an apple once during training was more than enough to make him clear out his pockets. He spared a glance down at his arm. A number of white lines in his fur remained where the fur had grown up through the scar tissue left from his encounter a number of months ago. While the wounds hadn't caused any real issue or any bald spots, the encounter did cause him what Luna called nightmares for a while. The princesses knew what happened in the tunnels, as did Rarity, but none of them spoke of it, nor did they tell Twilight. She really didn't need to know something like that, and with that pack destroyed it wasn't likely to come up again. He glanced around the small guard outpost looking for Captain Comet Trail, the Thestral, or Nocturne, or Kiran, or whatever they were calling themselves now that Luna had come back. Wasn't anywhere around. His race had been an interesting thing to find out about. Like ponies, the primarily nocturnal, bat pony race had 3 tribes of their own, as well as a homeland out in a set of islands in the Hooper Sea. The primary island was called Lionheart after the nation's founder and hosted the main brunt of their race in vast underground cities. Twilight ate the information up when she harassed Comet Trail the first few weeks he was here. The Thestrals were the Pegasus versions of the bat ponies, and were often what anyone thought of as they were the kind most likely to travel from their homeland. The Kiran were the unicorn versions. They actually were more dragon-like in appearance than bat, with many having patches of scales and more predator-like teeth despite being mostly fruit eaters. The Nocturne were the earth pony variants and were supposed to be rather massive, though they rarely left the island. The overall name of the race was the Noxcal, though they referred to themselves as ponies for the most part now. They had done that since the fall of the Lunar Republic, when Luna was defeated after she turned against Celestia. He was glad his sister had developed some sort of tact, because she was still chomping at the bit to learn about the whys and hows of the Equestrian Civil War. At the moment Ross wasn't concerned with any of that. The past, particularly something like that, was the princess's business. He only cared when conversations about witch wolves came up. The buffalo knew very little, Celestia claimed to know less, and Luna refused to say anything. Comet Trail had asked some scholars he knew back home, but all of their information of the Equestrian Civil War had been purged not long after their surrender. The Moondog stretched again, wondering where his instructor was. He felt he had come a good ways since he started losing a good bit of his body fat, though he hadn't put on as much muscle as he liked. His body seemed to prefer remaining lithe and corded and somewhat lanky rather than bulky. His biggest problem was he still couldn't hit the speedy little instructor in their spars. The few hits he did manage were easily turned aside or blocked. Comet Trail had mentioned doing something different today, though Ross didn't think what he was planning would be skipping out like this. "Oh good, you're already here," the Thestral called out as he fluttered down to land with barely a sound nearby. "You warmed up?" Ross frowned, his ears flicking. "Hey, an instructor is never late, nor early, they arrive precisely at the right time to screw with their trainees." Comet Trail smirked. "Anyway, after a bit of conversation with some others in my unit, I figured out what we're gonna do here. You've pretty much reached the limit of what I can teach you." "Woof?" Ross questioned. "Calm down, I'm still gonna oversee your training and offer pointers. But it's like this. There's 3 types of fighter. A striker, which covers most Pegasi. Get in, get out, hit, and don't get hit. You don't have wings, and you're slow as dirt, so you suck at that already." Ross growled. "A brute, which is the sort to take punishment and deal it out, usually falls to earth pony types. You have the makings of something like that, but I doubt your grandmother wants you to be the damage sponge you would need to be for that. Also, you don't have the body type for the amount of armor you would need to wear to make that work." Ross considered pointing out he tended to heal from most injuries rather quickly so long as he had a supply of magic, but tanking didn't sound like fun. Then there's a caster, which you aren't. Like at all, you're like an anti-caster. I've seen rocks with more spell ability than you. Ross rolled his eyes, crossing his arms over his chest as he glared down at the stallion, his ears flicking and demanding that Comet get to the point. Point is, Ross, that pony training isn't going to do you much good beyond the basics. So I had to figure something else out. And that's when it hit me, you fight like a griffin. With claws and fangs rather than beak, but still. Problem is, most griffins are strikers. However, after a bit of searching and a talk with Miss Rarity, I found a trainer that would be able to play to your strengths and teach you something that blends striker with brute. Now I know I simplified the whole thing with only giving you 3 very basic types of combatant, but whatever, you're here for training, not a history of fighting. Ross frowned as he wondered what Rarity had to do with any of this. The mare was still aggravated at Spike, but why would Comet Trail need to talk with her? Unless he was flirting with her too, which was possible. He doubted there was a single mare in town who hadn't been flirted with by the Thestral. His ears perked as Ross heard something before catching a scent that was growing stronger. His ears flattened to his head as he growled, though before he could bring it up, a hole opened in the ground at the edge of the training ground. A pair of armored diamond dogs burst out of the ground, landing on either side of the hole, scanning the area as if looking for a threat. Ross growled, taking a step back, though Comet Trail seemed unfazed. "Ah, here they are," the stallion offered, getting a confused look from Ross. "Relax, they're from the other pack nearby, the ones that didn't come after you. Ponyville has fairly good relations with the Wolf Fang." A moment later, a smaller, older female diamond dog clambered out of the hole with a bundled calico-faced pup under one arm. She looked over at Ross and winced before barking something at the 2 guards, who eased up their stance. "I suppose that's one way to make it here without causing panic in town." Comet shrugged. "Gonna have to explain the new hole to the groundskeeper though. My apologies if this was not suitable, but you ask us to be discreet in our arrival." Another voice sounded and a 4th female figure climbed out of the hole. "I am simply glad we did not overshoot and wind up in some pony's basement." Again. One of the guards flinched. The female diamond dog was big. While he had seen others larger when he was captured, he had not seen a female this large. Her fur was jet black and her long white hair was pulled into 3 long braids that spilled down her back. She wore a simple pair of shorts that did little to hide the toned form of her hips and rump, nor the fact that she moved without any wasted energy, as if every step and shift of her form conveyed strength. Her chest was also rather sizable, rivaling Rarity's huge tracts of land, when she had been accursed. The vest that covered her looked as if it might burst if she breathed in too hard, but the material seemed to stretch easily, showing it was stronger than it looked. Ross was unsure if he was disappointed in that or not. The female's tail wagged lightly behind her as her blue eyes locked on Ross. While she didn't tower over him, she was definitely bigger, and he inched her out only by the points of his ears compared to her more wolf-like ones. "Ah, you must be the trainee," the female smirked. "My name is Jinx, I'm your new instructor. We're going to be spending quite a bit of time together." Ross just whined. Cadence skipped into her quarters, leaving the guards at the door as she hummed to herself. This last few days had been perfect. Engaged to Shiny, her first gala completed, and she had managed to pair up one of her guards to one of Celestia's on the walk back from the successful meeting with the ambassador from the Harpy Nation. Then there was the note from Spike about Twilight having a date, a note she kept from Shining, of course. And all that after a night that left Shiny nearly comatose on his day off, and had her trotting funny the first part of the morning. Perfect. And now her official day was over and she could take care of something she had been working on. Looking around her room, she let her horn glow lightly and a loud click sounded from behind the cold fireplace. The stone at the base of the hearth seemed to drop and slide down to form a set of stairs that Cadence quickly descended before flipping the switch in her magic and sealing the door again. The anti-teleportation wards in this area of the castle kept out intruders and allowed Cadence to do what she needed. 8 doors, 4 pass codes, a hoof print, an eye scan, and a dozen keys later, she was in her secret lab in the mountain under Canterlot Castle. The most secure location anywhere. There were more wards and locks on this room than any place else, including the royal vaults. No one could get in but her. Which was of course why she screamed like a filly when she turned on the lights and Princess Luna was sitting at the planning table eating cookies. What? How, Luna? Cadence stammered. Luna asked through a mouthful of cookies. How did you get in here? Cadence demanded. Secret tunnel. Luna explained. Secret tunnel? Cadence questioned. Secret tunnel. Luna confirmed. Through the mountain. Why? Cadence stammered before stopping herself and glaring at the goddess of night, and more importantly the green box she was eating cookies out of. Those had better not be my Philly Scout cookies. They are not. Luna explained. Oh good. Tia already stole and ate those thou had hidden behind the drop-away bottom of thine joy chest hidden under thine bed. Luna explained. What? Cadence growled. Truth. Luna nodded. These are her mints of thinness. Hence why we are here, hiding in thine secret room. If mine sister scries the box, she shall see they are in thine possession and she hast no claim of revenge because she already stole thine cookies. Cadence raised an eyebrow at Luna. Every time she thought she had the mare figured out, some new depth of violence, sneakiness, or insane cunning appeared from her. It was something she wondered if anyone other than Celestia realized. So what is this place? Luna asked. And just like that the cunning part of her seemed to go away. You broke in here and you don't know. We were mostly focused on the mints of thinness. They are quite delectable. Luna admitted. Right, anyway, this is where I do the work of love. Cadence smirked, glancing back as Luna looked down in clear disgust, yanking the box off the table. We need to go have a bath, in a volcano, Luna gagged. Not that kind of work. Cadence shouted with a blush. Look. Cadence's horn glowed as a large pegboard was pulled over. The massive thing was quickly set down before them, allowing Luna to look it over. In the center of the board was Twilight Sparkle's cutie mark. Surrounding it were a number of other cutie marks, including Prince Bluebloods. Strings of various colors radiated out from Twilight's mark to the other cutie marks, and in some cases some of the other cutie marks had strings connecting them too. There were numerous reds and a few greens, though only one bright pink, and that one connected Twilight's cutie mark with one of a large green apple. Whoops, wrong one. Cadence muttered, flipping the board to the other side. Asterisk. Ponyville. Spike stared at his sister with his eyes narrowed and his arms crossed. If you're not a pod pony, then you have to be an evil twin from another dimension. Spike concluded. That's the only explanation for this. For what? Twilight questioned, looking over the dresses she had and selecting one of her newer ones. Granted, there were only the two. It was hard enough getting Rarity to make something simple for her without a hassle, and none of her older dresses fit her anymore. According to her parents during her brief visit home a few weeks ago, Twilight had bulked up considerably from when she was living in Canterlot. She really wasn't sure why, as she didn't think she was any more active here than she had been at home. Then again, she didn't have Tuesdays there like she did here. You're calm. And you have a date? Spike accused. The little dragon was much more active in Ponyville than he had been at home, though he hadn't lost a bit of his rotundness, but Twilight did note he was carrying around more books and could run with less wheezing, so there was something. She wondered again if it had something to do with the element of magic. She had checked Spike, but she never could get a consistent reading on the dragon. Not enough was known about them, really. It was a study she needed to get into one day. Not today though. So? Twilight questioned, wondering if she should put on makeup or at least some sort of lip gloss. She expected kissing and was debating if she wanted to leave her mark on Mac or not. Twilight, I've seen you go on dozens of dates. I have yet to see you not have a minor freak out about going on one of those dates. Spike accused. So what is it, some sort of mind control? Twilight paused, considering that. She was surprisingly calm, though this was really the first official date Big Mac had invited her on. The pair had hung out in the orchards a few times talking. Despite his seemingly limited vocabulary, Big Mac was highly intelligent. Granny had let slip that he had an invitation to try out for Celestia's school at one point before the incident with his parents had kept him on the farm. The return of the applewood yoke that had been lost had the whole family bawling. While they had long been declared dead after they saved their foals by running them off to fight the attacking diamond dogs, there had never been anything left to bury, and given what Twilight had heard about what the diamond dogs used to do to ponies, none of them were under any illusion there would ever be any bodies to bury. Though in regards to Big Mac, Granny had made some not-so-subtle comments about places Twilight could be buried where no one would ever find all of her if she was just playing with Mac. And just like that, asking Princess Luna about witch wolves dropped considerably in her terror factor. "Why are you processing your response?" Spike asked. "I get it, you're a robot. That makes more sense. What have you done with my sister Utin Jalopy? Okay, first, I really need to cut you back on your comic books." Twilight sighed. "Ooh, good opening move." Spike winced. "Credible threat. Secondly, while this might be the first date, Big Mac and I have been hanging out for a few months now, this is just the first time there's been something of note nearby to go on a date to. Hoofington is holding a spring festival and Mac decided to invite me to go to it. Right, and I'm expected to believe the real Twilight would go to a completely new town for an overnight date. While I'm not going to argue, an overnight date sounds fantastic." Twilight paused, glancing down at her younger brother. "For stargazing, Hoofington is barely a 30-minute train ride away. We'll be back later this evening." "Still doesn't sound like a real place." Spike humphed. Asterisk. "The Love Lab." The other side of the board was much the same, though in the middle of the board was a navy blue paw print. Strings shot out everywhere, crisscrossing the board, connecting to other cutie marks with various colors. Cadence grinned, gesturing at it with a wing. "What is it?" Luna tilted her head, not seeing any sort of reference to what the strings might mean. "It's a relationship flow chart." Cadence rolled her eyes. "The other one was for Twilight, this one is for Ross." Luna's ears perked up at that. And what do the strings mean?" "It's dependent on color and what I felt when I talked to those interested in them." Cadence explained. "See, green means there could be a relationship if something drastic happens. Blue is if they are just friends and nothing's going to come of it. Red, which Ross only has the one for, means they are completely incompatible and likely would kill each other." Twilight had a great deal of red string, Luna noted. Cadence pointed a wing to where a green string ran to a trio of blue diamonds and then to a blue string where it ran to a cloud with a rainbow-colored lightning bolt. "Drastic." Luna considered looking at the color. "Yes, in this particular case Rarity would either have to change nearly completely or get stuck as a diamond dog forever. I don't think anything else would work out for them." Cadence explained. "It could happen." Luna offered darkly, and Cadence shook her head. No, last resort thing, she's not really right for him anyway." Cadence frowned. "It would wind up a loveless political marriage at the end. Ross would think she was hot, but she just wants a prince. That's not love." Cadence pointed to the blue line. "This one with rainbow dash is never going to change. Ross isn't interested in her that way, and despite what she says, and acts like Dash isn't as promiscuous as a normal Pegasi. Trust me, I know about that one." Cadence grinned, having once been just a Pegasus. "We shall take thine word for it." Luna smirked. "What of the ones with two colors?" Cadence looked back to where a black paw print was connected to the blue one with two lines, one white, one black. White means there's a obsession or high level of interest. Black means that one has no idea about the other. In this case, Jinx is interested in Ross, but he has no idea she exists. Luna smiled. "That changed today. Jinx has made her move, and our guard shall tell me of Ross's reaction to her. Ooh, I need to get a new string then." Asterisk. Crash. No. See, you overextended your arm there and I easily grabbed it to throw you, you also hesitated. Follow through with the attack or not at all. Woof. So what? If this was a real fight, would you be that worried about grabbing the chest of some bitch that attacked you? No. Now get up and try again. Jinx ordered, the diamond dog having a rather wide grin on her face, having gotten a few extra personal grabs herself on Ross and was happy with the results. Is that not right, Captain? Yeah, do that, Comet Trail called out with a wave of his wing. The stallion sat on a tree stump near the guards and Jinx's advisor. The older canine seeming a bit worried about everything. Particularly when Ross went flying into the dirt again with Jinx quickly pinning him. Not to question you, pony, but are you sure this okay? The female uttered. Comet Trail looked up from a collection of pictures of various mares he had acquired in his time here, still unable to really choose any of them. He had dated a few of them, though he had stopped himself from going so far as a roll in the hay with any of them to avoid any sort of favoritism being shown as he considered his options. Oh, this? Jinx won't hurt him, and I did the same sort of training but less touchy-feely. Ross is a stubborn sort, but hard to train. He gets annoyed if he thinks he's not progressing in training and even more annoyed if you go easy on him. In the end, he's not really a fighter. Sure, he can hold his own and just based on what he can do he's a dangerous foe. But he has to be willing to fight, and I'm not seeing him have that sort of drive in a spar. I expect he would if his family or friends were threatened, and I was hoping Lady Jinx might scare some sort of reaction from him, but she's playing with him too. Sure, he's learning from her, he doesn't make the same mistakes twice, but he has to recognize he made a mistake to learn from it, and she's taking too much advantage of that. This is also the weirdest attempt at trying to convince someone to bang you I have ever seen. The canine stared at the Noxcal blankly. Yeah, it'll be fine. Comet Trail sighed as Ross howled out as he sailed off to crash into some bushes. Asterisk. What of the fishing line? Luna asked, noting a large number of lines going to various ponies, including some of Twilight's other friends. That means I don't know. There could be a connection and I feel something, but it's weak and might not be anything more than friendship. Pinkie Pie is up there simply due to the fact she told Shiny she had a special some pony. Fluttershy cares for him deeply, but that might just be her element. And AJ is more from Ross to her, than the other way around because of the apples. There's no real connection to any of them I can pinpoint. And the orange line running to Trixie Lulumoon is? Luna asked. That means it's complex. See, there's a white line from Trixie to Ross and the orange line means he likes her, but not likes her, you understand? No. Luna deadpanned. Asterisk. Achoo. Trixie blinked, looking up from where she sat in her cart. She had made it through the whole winter without a cold and she didn't need to be developing one now as summer was just getting started. She had 4 shows left to do this week. Asterisk. What's the purple line to the moth then? Luna asked. That means I need to investigate it. Cadence frowned. According to Spike, some mare he'd never seen before started flirting with Ross when they went out to eat. Ross was oblivious though. According to Spike, the mare had this half-starved look on her face when she was looking at Ross. Since then Spike has seen her about town, though he claimed Pinkie Pie didn't know who she was. At which point the letter got into some rather weird things that Pinkie did trying to find the unknown mare. Luna raised an eyebrow at that as she considered what that could mean. That does bear investigation. Asterisk. Satunia frowned as she slipped back into an alcove and then into the darkness, concealing her hive's location. The pink mare was causing issues. She was having a hard time getting close to Ross Sparkle without that one showing up and trying to make friends. She had a few narrow escapes, needing to change forms at least 3 times in order to avoid being found out. Still, he knew she existed now, and after learning about him from her spies it hadn't been hard to make herself have the same scent as a diamond dog with a little pony mixed in. She couldn't change her base scent as a changeling, but she could mask it and likely make it something more interesting to the moon dog. Her plan was in motion. fears aside, she was going to make that bastion of power hers. Asterisk. So you do not believe anything shall come of the Gilda pairing? Luna considered. Not likely. No, there's not enough interest. If the pair lived closer together, had constant interaction, or the interest was higher before she went home maybe, but I doubt we will see anything of that. And the massive cloud at the top connected by green string. All the mares of Cloudsdale. Cadence frowned. We think not. Agreed, but I needed to take that into account for predictions. Cadence nodded, pointing at the red string from Ross to the cloud. Well, at least the Twilight Sparkle chart is completed. Ross is a complex one. Far more than you think. Luna smiled. Asterisk. Later that night, Sweet Apple Acres. Well, looky what the cat dragged in. Applejack snarked from where she leaned on the railing, watching her brother pause at the comment, then continue to stride up towards the farm. Told ya not to wait up. Big Mac grumbled. Nah, ya told that ta Granny and Apple Bloom. Didn't tell me nothing. Applejack smirked, pushing off the fence to follow her brother up towards the farmhouse. So how'd it go? Good. Up. Big Mac smirked. Shining armor ever show up to harass you? Enapi. Well, ya still got that to look forward to then. Applejack chuckled. Thinking of a second date yet? Up. Big Mac looked down at his sister with mild annoyance at the plethora of questions he couldn't avoid with his usual one-word answers. Though before he could become more verbose, a rustling in the tree they were passing under brought both of them to a stop. Ross dropped down before them suddenly as if he was unfolding from the foliage, his arms crossed over his chest, his coat pulled around him like a bat as he hung upside down, managing to still be eye level with Mac from his odd position. Ross? What the hey? Applejack questioned. Ross pointed a finger to his chest, then two claws to his eyes, then pointed at Big Mac before pulling himself back up into the tree without breaking eye contact with Big Mac or uncrossing his arms. Big Mac frowned, staring up into the darkness of the tree, and then looked down at AJ. I am going to bed. The large stallion trotted on down the path, leaving his sister behind, looking after him for a moment before the orange mare looked up in the tree again. Was that really necessary? Applejack demanded. Shining asked me to, was the grumbled response. Applejack raised a brow hearing Ross talk pony, but she was starting to understand it was something he did occasionally. Applejack blinked a moment before shrugging. Did ya have to use one of my trees? There was a light growl. Are you stuck up there again? Applejack asked after another pause and not hearing him move. This was a faint whine in response. Applejack sighed and moved over to the tree trunk. She turned around and lashed out with her back legs. The heavy thunk of her hooves hitting the tree was followed by the hard shaking of the branches and leaves. Moments later there was a startled yelp as Ross fell out of the tree to land with a crash on the ground. The pile of moondog whimpered a thanks, most likely. Done mention it, and stop climbing my trees. Author's note. And thus the final chapter of Twilight Gets a Puppy Season 1 is concluded. Few things of note. 1. I would be highly amused if someone drew Ross confronting Mac by hanging from the tree, the mental image of that is killing me. 2. Noxcal is what I'm calling the Bat Pony race in TCAP. It's a mix of Roman and Romanian, translating to simply night horse. 3. Ross has not met Jinx, and is once again glad someone invented pants. 4. Link to Season 2. End author's note. Poster's note. This is the last chapter in Twilight Gets a Puppy, Season 1. I will be posting Season 2. But it's going to be some time before I start to post it. End poster's note. End of Twilight Gets a Puppy. Season 1.